Hare Krishna devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All wish Sri Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. We start with brief prayers. Om Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschati Desatarini Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. 1 minute. Uh, So Hare Krishna everyone, thank you for making the time to join this session, and for those who are going to hear the recording. It's a brief summary of chapter 5. The session is intended to give a summary for those who are reading every day 2 verses of Bhagavad Gita, so that you get a overall picture of the chapter from whatever you read so far every day, so that you get a quick summary of the chapter. That is the intention of this. Is not the intention of this is not to go over every verse in the chapter, every concept in the chapter like that. Number one. So that means the intent is to share certain key essences from this chapter, not all the key essences from chapter, certain key essences from this chapter, so that we can apply in our own daily life, whatever we read from Bhagavad Gita like that. So with that understanding, let me share my screen so we can cover the summary of the chapter 5. Okay, let me go there. Okay, let me share my screen. Okay, hope you can see my screen now. So we'll go through chapter 5. It's a very brief outline of the whole chapter 5. And we can look at the chapter 5 in few different ways. And this is one way I'm looking at this chapter. And there is another simplistic way I will also show you also beyond this. So one way of looking at this chapter, maybe first is the chapter starts with Arjuna asking a question. Do I get out of this place? Do I stop fighting and then do yoga? Or do you need to fight? What is good for me like that? In a sense, that's what he's asking. So basically, he's asking, do I fight or do I renounce work like that? That is a simple question. This, if you remember, similar question was asked in chapter 3 also. And Krishna gives transcendental knowledge. We'll see the connection with this chapter in the next slide coming up. So that's the first section where Krishna describes how both are equal, renouncing and doing work with knowledge and detachment. Both are good. But for you, working with detachment is better. That's how Krishna describes in the first section, first two sections. So then, basically, working with detachment with transcendental knowledge is what Krishna is recommending, which is called as akarma, if you remember in the previous sections, which is performing work for pleasing Supreme Lord like that. Then Krishna gives an important understanding, the principle of knowledge of the three doers. That means I am not the only doer. There are other higher principles in play in this world. Just because I'm doing a lot of work doesn't guarantee the results. So he introduces two more doers than ourselves in this picture. One is ourselves as living being or soul. Other two elements, two factors Krishna brings into picture are material nature and supreme Lord. We'll discuss briefly about that. Basically, Krishna is describing that don't think just by my doing activities I'll get the results I want. I have that as a soul, I can desire what I want. Then Supreme Lord needs to sanction that. Then once the Supreme Lord sanctions it, material nature facilitates it for that to happen. How is the material nature facilitating it? Number one, the resources required to achieve whatever I want is coming through material nature. Number one. Number two, the whatever actions I'm performing is based on my own swabhava. That means whatever my impressions that I have, the inclinations that I have, tendencies that I have, like that. Where is that swabhava coming from? Based on the influence of previous modes that that I affected me, whether it's mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance, like that. That's how material nature is playing a role in fulfilling the what I need to get done, like that. And then Krishna describes how one who's in knowledge and fixes his consciousness devotionally on the super soul and remains equipoised, he can attain liberation in the near future. So he talks about characteristics of a liberated soul in essence. You probably remember second chapter also talks about Chitta Prajna. So this is similar to that. It talks about the characteristics of a liberated soul. And then Krishna gives a quick preview of Ashtanga Yoga that's coming up in next chapter, sixth chapter. So what he says is through Ashtanga Yoga also one can aspire to go to liberation, like that. Then finally sums up the chapter with one beautiful verse, very important principles. We'll discuss in detail about this, wherein Krishna gives the peace formula, where we need to understand, we need to develop some detachment, understanding that Supreme Lord is the controller, Supreme Lord is the enjoyer, Supreme Lord is the maintainer, like that. And that way, we can actually attain peaceful platform, like that he describes. So that's the last section. So essentially, this chapter is talking about how we can practice Krishna consciousness by doing our daily duties that we are doing in this material world. Not that I need to give up everything and go to the forest and do spiritual life, like that. That is the essential principle in the overall theme of this chapter, basically. We'll discuss some details about it. So this is how the connection goes in the chapter. First is, remember in chapter 4, Krishna has explained two different concepts simultaneously. One is that he says all kinds of sacrificial work culminates in transcendental knowledge. Number one point he's making. That means through that he's telling about glories of having knowledge, like that. And then he speaks about action in inaction, that is a akarma, and then inaction in action, that's also akarma, like that. So that so the point here is Krishna is telling how when you are in knowledge, it helps, like that. Now Arjuna is thinking when Krishna is glorifying the knowledge, he thinks, okay, knowledge means I don't need to do any work. Like that is thinking. He's thinking knowledge and work are mutually exclusive, basically. So now in 441, he glorifies knowledge and renunciation because this is the culmination point. That means when we're in knowledge, we're in renunciation. That means there's no work involved, like that is thinking, number one. Number two, in 442, Krishna orders Arjuna to fight also. So now he's confused. You are saying fight, you are saying don't fight because you're telling about glorifying knowledge, he's thinking. But actually, Krishna is describing you fight with knowledge. It's not either or situation, but it's and. So that's why Arjuna is asking clarification again, similar to the third chapter. He's asking, working in devotion is better, or renouncing the work is better, stopping the work and going home is better. Like that, he's asking. So that is how Krishna discussed beautiful things in this chapter. So now, the same chapter overview, we can look at it in another way also. This is a simple acronym Swayam Bhagavan Keshav Maharaj has. STEP is the acronym. So the way he describes is, we can make steps to get deep into material complexities, or we can make steps to go towards liberation, towards freedom, like that. So what are the steps Krishna is describing in this chapter towards freedom and liberation? First thing is, he talks about how we don't have, just because we're practicing spiritual path, we don't have to give up anything in everything in this world. We can still stay in this world and perform our duties in this world and still pave the path towards spiritual progress through that. And that can help our spiritual progress also. For example, our duties in the family life can support and can help our spiritual progress also. That's what he's describing. How is it possible? One example. For example, for us to chant better, we need to develop some amount of detachment, some amount of tolerance, some amount of humility, and these all can be cultivated in family life in terms of detachment, in terms of patience, in terms of giving respect to others, in terms of uh, tolerance. All these qualities are suitable. Family life is best suited for that. And also, family life, like most of you know, will also help us to be properly grounded and in a safe boundaries instead of um, prematurely renouncing the world, but still thinking about what I missed, what I missed, what I missed, like that. That's the first point. That means you can still stay in the world and make your activities suitable for spiritual progress instead of giving up all the activities like that. That is the first point you're making, first theme, first section. Second section, we briefly discussed about the three doers already, which is I'm not the only, just because I'm doing all the work, I cannot guarantee the result, the best result I can get. So there are three doers. What are the three doers? Myself as spirit soul, supreme lord, and material nature. How are these three interconnected? I as a spirit soul desire what I need to happen, and the supreme lord needs to sanction, second factor. Third factor is material nature needs to support for fulfilling that desire, like that. So the three doers, that is it indicated. So how does this help? One thing is understanding that I'm not the only factor in getting the success in terms of any kind of endeavor. That is one way this will help. This knowledge will help. Second way this will help is there is a higher power that is sanctioning whatever I'm getting. That also is helpful for us. Yeah. And then the equal vision. I'm going to the equal vision. In this section, um, Krishna describes how a learned Brahmana, a wise sage, how he sees everybody equally from spiritual vision. Materially, somebody may be in dog body, somebody may be in Brahmana body, somebody may be in elephant body, somebody may be in dog eater body. Doesn't matter. But he sees everyone equally in spiritual vision. How does this help? We'll talk more about it. One way this will help is that we're not discriminating based on the external appearance and what they currently have in possession materially. Instead, we see them as spirit soul with equal opportunity, equal potency to do the same things one need to do to go back to spiritual world, like that. Of course, if somebody is an animal body, they don't have the same privilege or opportunity to practice bhakti like somebody is in a human body. That is understood. But they see the spirit soul because of their past actions. They are currently in this circumstance right now. But they also are spirit soul like us only, like that. They will see animals and plants like that, for example. There is the equal vision. Then the last section talks about the peace formula we talked about. How Krishna, a Supreme Lord, is the uh, supreme enjoyer, supreme proprietor, supreme controller, and then is the best well-wisher for us. So that understanding gives us peace also. So this is another way to describe the whole chapter in four sections basically. Yeah. So coming to some of the practical applications from this chapter we can take. Um, First one is, how does this chapter knowledge change our thinking paradigm? Because when our thinking is shifted, when our consciousness is at the right place, then the words and actions will follow. So this is like that is why we're exploring this for each of the chapters in Bhagavad. So uh, the way this chapter is making us think differently is most people think we should become the best. That means we should get the best results like that. So that means focus is on the results that we get. That means if I get the best result I want, whatever I'm expecting, whatever I'm wanting, then I'm successful. Otherwise, I'm not successful. That is a material paradigm. But this Bhagavad Gita chapter is shifting our consciousness to understand that we should try our best. As long as we try our best, that itself is success. Not when we get the good result or not, what we're expecting. That is a focus shift from success, seeing success in terms of results versus seeing success in terms of our endeavor. That means if I strive my best, if I may do my best endeavor, then I am successful. So that is what, that is the paradigm this chapter is giving us. So some examples I'll share from Swami Bhagavan Keshav Maharaj. So then generally people are trying to achieve something based on the social pressure that they get in terms of family and others, in terms of what we want to get, what we want to be, like that. So uh, essentially everybody wants to make others proud of us. That is where they're living. But does our value really lie in external achievements or something much deeper? How do we define this real success? That is a question to ask for. Krishna reassures Arjuna that for if somebody is embarking spiritual journey, they don't need to leave the world. They don't need to leave the whatever they're doing. They just need to shift their consciousness to do for the pleasure of Krishna. So, in other words, the key is to do whatever we're doing, but with detachment. That's the key Krishna highlighted in this chapter. So now we can only control what we can do. What is our hands? What is our endeavor, like that? What is the result comes? That is the other factors we discussed. Krishna needs to sanction, material nature needs to fulfill, like that. So when we understand that to get the result is not entirely dependent on me only, there are other factors involved that actually is very beneficial for us. How? Let us say I get the best results possible. I get wonderful achievements in my life. Then I understand that result came not just because of me alone. My endeavor played a role. My hard work played a role. My intention and focus played a role. However, it needs to be sanctioned by Supreme Lord also. And it needs to be facilitated by material nature also. When I understand these other factors, I develop some gratitude for the external factors that are contributing towards my success. That is one benefit of knowing this. Another benefit of knowing this is that, let us say I do my best efforts in doing something to achieving something, but still the result doesn't come. Then I understand that result is not meant to come right now, because I did my best, but all the factors are not in my control. We'll talk about the karma in the next principle I'll talk about. Yeah. So that means uh, my success is not defined uh, by being the best, but by trying my best according to my current capacity. Most of you might know also a story given in Ramayana about a squirrel and a Hanuman or monkeys. Monkeys are putting big, big boulders in the ocean to make the path to go towards Lanka, whereas the squirrel was putting little dust, it seems, in the ocean. So monkeys are saying, go out of my way. You are doing very little. How does it count? I'm putting big, big boulders. That's what will count. But Lord Rama didn't consider like that. Lord Rama considered that squirrel is doing the best according to its little capacity. And monkeys are doing best according to their capacity to put big boulders, big rocks, like that. So, Supreme Lord is merciful. He's only seeing, are we doing whatever we are capable of doing? That's all. He's not asking us to do something beyond our capacity, something beyond our circumstance. Whatever is allowed in circumstance, we do the best we can. Then Supreme Lord will take care of the rest, like that. So that is a principle we can learn from this section also. Remember, we talked about the three doers principle and also the detached working principle we talked about, Nishkam Karma Yoga, where we're understanding that I'm not the only contributor to the result, number one. Number two, I'm not focused on the results only. That doesn't mean that I don't have goals. I don't make a plan for certain result. Not that. I make a plan. I make goals. I strive towards it sincerely also. But I understand that's not only depend on me. That is the idea. So the basic difference is when the result is become success or failure, I'm not affected by that material result that is coming out, like that. So that is a basic principle to note here in the thinking change. Most of you might know this is the way this is described in the book called Seven Habits of Highly Successful People. I think Stephen Covey wrote this book. So this principle is from this Bhagavad Gita. This chapter exemplifies this principle. So basically, it's talking about how in our life there is a circle of influence and there is a circle of concern. What does this circle of concern means? Circle of concern means things that are not directly in our control, like how the environment is there, how the world population is growing, how the climate is there today, all those things that I cannot do anything about directly. Okay, that is what is about circle of concern. And circle of influence means what I can do. For example, the job I need to find, I can, that's in my hands to find, to make the endeavor to find the job at least. Whether I get the job or not is a different story. But at least what kind of job I'm looking for, what kind of studies I'm doing, what kind of friends I'm associating with, what kind of habits I'm cultivating. These are all in the circle of influence. That's in my control, more or less. So the difference between these two is the gap that determines the dissatisfaction and frustration we are we are undergo. For example, this is a very important principle for all of us to know where am I spending most of my time, energy, and resources. I'm spending in what I can control, what I can deal with in circle of influence, or I'm spending most of my time, energy, and resources in the circle of concern that I don't have really control about. I'm thinking about it all the time. For example, I'm thinking about the climate change, but I'm consuming all my time, energy, resources there. But I'm not doing anything that is in my hands for climate change. For example, I have to do some practical steps, how to use less paper, how to use less plastic. Am I doing something in my hands? So if you focus on that, basically, whatever we have control in, if we focus on, then the circle of influence will gradually increase. That's what we'll see. That means the gap between circle of influence and circle of concern will reduce. That is the way to be satisfied and happy in whatever we're doing in life. But instead, I'm only thinking about what I cannot do about, worrying about what I cannot do anything about. Then naturally circle of influence will get shrunken. So that means the gap will increase. Then I will be I'll be subjected to more and more dissatisfaction like that. That is a so so how do we apply this in our life? We can consider. Let us say we can take top three things. What are the three, what are the areas in circle of influence that I need to work on, but I'm not working currently? That means something that I can improve in myself, but I'm not able to focus on it, time, energy, resources currently. Pick three things, not too many things. Number one. Number two, similarly, what are the things I'm focusing my time, energy, and resources in circle of concern that are beyond my ability to do anything about? And I should spend less time, energy, and resources in that. Identify three things like that. So that way we can apply this chapter knowledge and practically in our life also. Yeah. Going further, how to become successful. We briefly talked about this, that how we are not the sole factor or dictator of our good fortune. We already talked about how three doers concept, material nature, and supreme lord also need to sanction. We talked about, right? That three factors, three doers. Apart from that, the what we have in this life is dependent on our own past karma. That means the high, what kind of birth I got here in in this life currently, how much opulence I have in this life currently, then how much beauty I have in this life currently, how much knowledge or how much intelligence I have in this life currently is based on what I have done in the past, based on the past karma. That is the result of what I am right now in these areas is the result of past karma. When we understand that, then we understand each of us are starting off with a different amount of past good karma in our life. That is why each of us have a separate journey in terms of karmic credits, in terms of spiritual elevation, like that. When we understand that, then we don't need to be worried by comparing. Oh, they're able to do this, I'm not able to do that. They're able to do that, I'm not able to do that, like that. We don't need to compare and criticize others because each of us is on a separate journey, individual journey, like that. So that is a important principle to understand for becoming successful. Number two, how we need to redefine our success. Success, most people think, is in terms of getting more and more money or more and more things to keep us happy materially. But real satisfaction and happiness comes when we look inward in terms of what makes us as spirit soul happy. That means by looking towards spiritual things, by paying attention to spiritual things, by taking time for meditation, then we can actually achieve the real success of satisfaction, like that. That's another thing we can learn from this chapter. Now, totally, now what is the role of learning from others? Some people are very successful. So what can we learn from others? How can we learn from others? So there are two principles I mentioned. One is when we see successful people, we need to just not see how they are so successful, they have so much money, so much fame, whatever, like that. Success happens to you materially. Not just see that, but see what are the qualities that they applied to get to that success currently. And can I apply the same qualities in my life? That is one angle we can look at. And also, what is stopping me from applying these qualities currently? That is another way we can look at it also. When we look at it like this, then we're not just looking at their wealth and say, oh my God, not become envious of them. Somebody has achieved something, we don't become envious of them. We take inspiration from them instead and take principles of their success instead. That is one point I want to mention. That means we're learning from others by seeing their qualities, by seeing the principles they applied to get wherever they are. Number one. But number two, at the same time, we understand each of us are an individual journey. That I might work I might apply the same principle as the other guy, but still I may not get the same result. Why? I may not have the same karmic credits as the other guy also. So that's the other principle we need to remember in terms of becoming successful. So now going to another obstacle to progress in the spiritual journey. So one of the obstacle is we talk about how some people say, oh, I don't want to practice spirituality so much. I don't want to learn Bhagavad so much. I rather help some practically to others. I feed the people who are hungry. I take care of people who are suffering from diseases. I construct a hospital. I make ensure they get a treatment. Like that, I want to help rather than practicing spirituality. Somebody may think like that, which is which is not wrong to think like that. But what is wrong is to do that practical help to others. They're they're neglecting their own spiritual journey. That is what is not appreciable. So, how do we see the same thing in a different way? We also can help others, but not lose the spiritual focus. When we develop the spiritual vision, like we talked about one of the Vidya Vinay Sampanne Brahmane Gavyastane, that verse, right? That means a learned and wise man sees everybody spiritual vision we talked about, right? That spiritual vision is important. When we get that ability to see spiritual vision, lots of problems in life which are caused due to the material vision are solved. For example, if I see everybody has spirit soul and everybody has every embodied soul has a Lord in their heart, then I respect everyone. Then when I respect everyone, then what does it mean? That means I can I don't try to cheat them. I don't try to disrespect them. I don't try to put them down. I don't try to take their credit like that. So by attacking and developing from material vision to spiritual vision, Actually, I'm helping more for converting the consciousness of the combined world for all of us together so that we can make a world a better place like that. So that is what is being indicated here. Similarly, many material problems have a spiritual solution. What is the spiritual solution? That is based on developing spiritual consciousness and spiritual vision. For example, there is scarcity of resources. What is the cause of scarcity of resources? Underlying cause is greed primarily. So greed and not doing sacrifices. So if everybody does the sacrifice, so demigods are happy, they would provide abundance of resources. And people are learning spiritual, progressing spiritually, and they develop the quality of satisfaction and get rid of the quality of greed. Naturally, there will be abundance because I'm not taking more and more, more and more, so that nobody else has anything like that. So like that, we can analyze each of these material problems today and see how they can be helped and solved with a spiritual vision like that. That's what, that's one of the things we can learn from this chapter like that. So all of this has a supporting verse also. I didn't get time to put the verse also in this, but Gita 3 book from Swami Vivekananda Keshav Maharaj has a supporting verse also indicated here. Yeah. So I want to pause there to see if you have any comments or questions. So I pause there. Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Sri Prabhupada ki jai. Any comments or questions, anybody? If not, we can continue. We will do chapter 6 summary. Chapter 5 is very short chapter because we're reading 2 verses every day. It's only 29 verses. So in 15 days, we'll finish it. That means another 1 week. We can probably 1 or 2 weeks, we'll meet again so that we can talk a summary of chapter 6. Yeah.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranamalu.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranamataji.
Yeah, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Prabhuji, I have one question. So today we are talking about the goals. So what I understood from this lesson is that we still should strive for goals, but
Yes,
we have to think that it is not just we are doing. We need to think that we need the mercy from God also. So I mean, He's also like a partner for us
correct.
to reach that goal. Is that right,
Absolutely.
Prabhuji?
That is correct understanding, Mataji. Yeah. So that means, let us say I'm doing the best I can, but no guarantee of the result unless I get the sanction of Supreme Lord also.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but sometimes my question is that see, in Bhagavad Gita, what we learn is that, like, you do your work,
Yeah.
don't expect the result. But
Correct.
without expecting the result, see, without that's what the result versus goal. I
Ah,
always get confused. So
good.
whenever we are doing something, some work,
Yeah.
we always need to know what is the end result, right?
Correct.
Without that, you don't want it to work like so much without expecting anything.
Correct.
So, how we should have that mindset, Prabhuji, like result
Eh,
versus goal?
Exactly. Very nice question. Actually, that this confusion is resolved with a word called expectation. So goal is different, expectation can be different. So how is that so? I'll explain. For example, my desire is to attend a spiritual program tomorrow evening in the temple. That is my goal. So now that can be my goal, and I can do everything possible in my capacity to reach that goal. That means I will do whatever possible. For example, I make sure my schedule is freed up for that particular time. So I don't have office work that time. I don't have homework that time. At that time, I don't have any other commitments I made. If I made, I need to reschedule them. Like that, I will do all the things possible now. And I'm working towards that goal diligently, understanding that my work is very important to achieve the goal. That means I'm not leaving any stones unturned. I'm doing my best towards that goal. That is one factor. At the same time, let us say suddenly something happens to our family members tomorrow evening. Then I need to go to emergency hospital instead. Then just because I could not reach the goal, I don't beat myself saying that, oh, see, I didn't plan properly. But So the factors involved here is two things. One is there are things that are outside my control that prevented me to go to the goal now, right? That is the one factor we'll recognize like that. When we recognize that like that, even though I'm not able to achieve the goal, I'm actually happy. I became already happy trying my best to go to the program tomorrow. That itself gives happiness. Same thing for spiritual progress also. Number one. Number two, just because I could not reach the goal, I don't go into depression saying that I should have planned it this way, I should have planned that way, this should not happen. So I understand I'm not the only person contributing to that result. So I don't blame myself and don't go into depression basically when the result doesn't come. Because I'm understanding there are other factors involved. I don't know if I'm making sense or not. Let me know if you need some other clarification, Mataji.
So you are saying that like we should not feel depressed or like feel stressed if we are not meeting the goal.
Yeah, correct.
That is in some cases it is okay, but my question is that uh, goal versus like expectation, right?
Yeah,
In real life, like suppose okay, I'm just taking the daily one, like I have boys, I have two kids,
mm.
so I ask them to work hard.
Yeah,
Why? How I can measure that? By seeing their grades at the end of the school year or at the end.
correct.
So now my question is that should I expect them to ace all the time? Because that is what my expectation for them.
Good.
Uh,
Yeah. So we
so
can,
is it right? It's not like pressure also I'm keeping, but there should be some way of measuring, right? What we are doing.
correct.
So how can I take, I mean, how should I set my mindset? That's the question.
Got it. Understood. So basically, the idea is, uh, even though your goal is for them to get A grade always for all the subjects, and that's what you desire, that's what they are also desiring, that's what they're working hard also. But there's no guarantee. For example, they might have necessary intelligence, they might have necessary resources like books and guidance to understand the subject matter to write the exam properly. Uh, Hopefully this doesn't happen, but because we're talking of example, I'm saying somebody is about to write the exam. On the last day, they might become sick, so they may not be able to write the exam. They had all the intelligence, resources, planning done, work done to get A grade in the class. But on that day, they're not able to write even exam. So they'll fail the exam. Then in that scenario, I'll also explain another positive scenario. In that scenario, I understand that I did the best I can to encourage my children. My children did their best to get the A grade, but there are circumstances beyond our control that are outside the circle of influence, that is the circle of concern, that I cannot do anything. That's what it happened. When we understand that, then we don't beat ourselves up, we don't beat children up like that. Similarly, let us say they got the highest grade possible. They became the valedictorian of the college like that, for example. Then also we understand I I encourage them to study nicely. I encourage them to work hard nicely. I'm a factor, a real factor. My children studied so nicely by planning their schedule, by getting the right resources, by preparing well. They also did their work nicely. But because of Krishna's blessings, finally they got it. That we need to understand. If I'm missing that portion in the positive things, what happens is I become proud. See, whatever I want, I can achieve it. Children also will think whatever I want, I can achieve it. Now, unfortunately, in life, we don't achieve everything in life that we want. Some things will fail. So if you go on this path, thinking that I can achieve whatever I want, I'm the only thing who can control everything. Then what happens is when there is a first failure that happens, they might even give up their life. That's what is happening to people in the world. Some of the students, IIT students like that. Because they're used to getting success all the time. They don't know how to handle failure. Because they're thinking, I am responsible. If I fail, that means something wrong with me only. That's all. Nothing else controlling. So that is why it's important to recognize other factors for our success and failure both. At the same time, remember, then how can you say that, oh, anyway, it's not dependent on me, why should I work hard? That complacency can come, right? How do you deal with that? Even though I am not the only factor, there are other factors for success or failure, but I am one of the important factors. We need to realize that. If I only drop out, then even though other factors can support, I will not get the result. This is like my teacher is very nice in scoring good marks, giving good marks to students. And I got the best question paper, simple, easy question paper I got. But I don't write anything on the paper. Then teacher cannot give good marks also, even though the easy questions came. So like that, there is a role that I am playing with my endeavor, but my endeavor is not the only factor in getting the success or failure. That is the principle we are learning from this chapter, Mate. So I don't know, still helps. We still need to strive for goals and we need to still do our endeavor, but understand the result is not only dependent on me only. Like that. That is the principle. Yeah, you can ask any clarification, Mate, if it still doesn't make sense.
Yeah. No problem. Thank you so much for explaining. It helps.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
Prabhuji, one more thing.
Yeah.
I'm trying very hard to cut down my tea, but I still don't understand or set my mind. Why should I cut my tea? Because I really, in the mornings, I know that makes me like, really wake up myself.
Yeah.
So I don't drink like, every day 5 or 6 cups, but I drink only 1 cup in the morning.
Perfect.
I'm trying hard, but it is not coming down that one. So, because in my mind, it is not completely set.
Correct.
So how
Exactly. You
should
understood
I set
properly.
my mind, Prabhuji?
Yeah, you understood properly. So, there are two aspects. You already understood the why is not very clear. So we need to understand, do research to understand the why. Okay, that's one. So second thing is we are valuing spiritual life and spiritual progress. So now our goal is to be situated in pure devotion service to Supreme Lord. That is our goal. So while progressing towards our goal, we can go at our own pace, slowly, this life little bit, next life little bit, next life little bit, next life little bit, like that. Or because we want to reach that goal, we can do little bit more in this life, as much as our capacity allows currently, like that. That means I can do some material, some spiritual, material, spiritual, like that I can go. Or I can try to reduce little bit less material, little bit more spiritual, like that I can keep going like that. That is another way we can choose to do in our life. Both are okay based on our capacity, our current understanding, current aspiration towards our goal. So the way to deal with it is increase our aspiration towards our spiritual goal, number one. Number two, develop our sadhana more so that we'll get positive attachment towards Supreme Lord, Krishna. And this strength will then give us the impetus and the need and wanting to reduce any other obstacles that are coming in our way to go towards Krishna. So we'll focus on more positive, how to improve my sadhana, how to develop my attachment towards Krishna. That will give us impetus to wanting to see what am I weak in something that I want to work on? Like that, we'll get the ideas. Then we'll see this is one of the idea. Don't focus, this is the first area you need to work on. Focus on developing positive attachment. That is one important principle I want to share with you. Now, coming to the tea area, there are some practical things we can do also beyond developing our spiritual taste, beyond developing our attachment towards Krishna, developing material detachment. We can also develop uh, do some practical steps to do something with that. Some steps practically we could do is, for example, some couple of devotees I know personally, they had the same habit every day morning. Wife and husband used to sit together and drink tea together. That is their morning ritual, and that helps them. That is a must for them. So the way they change that is now also they sit together, but they change it to hot milk instead, for example. For them that worked. Not for everybody, it will not work exactly like that. I'm just giving you an example only. Not like everybody can follow same principle. So they drink hot milk. They still together sit and talk together and drink the milk every day morning. So that is one aspect, one way to deal with it, practical way. Another practical way to deal with it is, so understanding, I understood that tea has intoxicants that are not helpful for my spiritual progress, that are not helpful for even health also. There are videos talking about health, how it is not helpful for health also. So those stimulants are not helpful for my physical health also, mental health also, and spiritual health also. So why not I try some imitation tea? That means some healthy version of tea. There are some options devotees have that can be made at home also, or that can be, for example, using some spices, Indian spices, we can make certain teas that will help. That's option one. Option two, there are some herbal tea versions that you can have also instead of the regular tea that we're used to like that. That is one area we can try also. But more important overall is to try to develop positive attachment towards Krishna, and that will give the spiritual strength to give up the negative things that we want to give up in our life, that are becoming obstacles on spiritual progress like that. That is the overall principle, is to develop positive attachment, but practically we can try some principles to see if that helps us currently. Even if it doesn't help currently, it doesn't mean that we're lifelong it will not help. As we grow spiritually, we'll be able to give up one by one, and others we can easily give up like that. Make sense, Mati? I can also find you resources on why tea is harmful for physical health also. I'll find you some resources here.
Yeah, I always think it is only small amount of tea powder, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, but I cut down. I used to drink earlier 2 cups
Oh, good.
morning. So evenings I cut down, and even in the morning, like before I used to take, I used to put 1 spoon of tea pata. Now
Ah,
I reduced to half. But
wow.
that feel like morning tea is like, yeah, it is tied with something like, as soon as you wake up and drink water and do puja, when you come
Yeah.
down to the kitchen, you wanted to first thing make a tea. And
Yeah. Actually,
mm,
you're right. Yeah. But it's good. You already made a lot of progress. You need to give credit for yourself for that, for the progress already. But you can continue like that. And by the way, there's a book called Atomic Habits by James Clear. Some of the habits like this, he understands that's not just because tea. We made it a ritual like that somehow.
yeah,
And that is become a trigger, like you said, right? After taking shower, after doing puja, we
yeah,
need to do that like that. We establish a habit like that.
yes.
That habits can be changed, he talks about, by looking at the trigger, by looking at what are we getting from that, like that. Really think about it like that. He talks about that aspects also.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Welcome, Adi.
Dhanavad Pranam.
And Pranamati. Hare Krishna. Okay, so we'll continue next week, probably next week or following week for the chapter 6 summary. Yeah. भवत की जय श्री प्रपादि की जय वाञ्छकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः. Thank you so much, devotees. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.